This is Golf Talk Canada, presented by smartgolfdeals.com, the smartest way to shop for golf.
Welcome to episode 5 of the Golf Talk Canada video podcast right here on tsn.ca. We have a busy show for you. Immediately following episode 4 last week, PGA Tour released its new schedule. We will jump into that today. Lawrence Applebaum, CEO of Golf Canada, joins Bob and I, and of course, Scully time. What happened in the world of golf a year ago this week? Let's bring in Mr. Weeks. Bob, how are you today? How you been holding up?
All good. Just the hair's getting longer, and my eating habits are not really improving. So it's going to be ugly when we get out of this quarantine.
I hear you. Every week I say, this is the week I get back in shape. This is the week I start my program. It is yet to happen yet. All right. Immediately following our podcast last week, bam, the news dropped on the new schedule. Some big changes. Obviously, the RBC Canadian Open being canceled, the biggest one to affect you and I in our Canadian golf community. But there were other surprises in there as well. The Greenbrier being canceled for good, permanently off the schedule. The surprise on the other side of the coin, the Asian Swing still on the calendar, and the Mayakoba event survived, which we heard rumors that maybe it would be removed from the schedule. What caught you off guard when all that dropped?
I think a couple things. One, it seems to me to be a bit of an ambitious restart date, being the middle of June, which was, it's not that far away really, and hopefully everything goes well. I know that since then there's been stories perhaps the PGA Tour is going to buy a whole bunch of testing kits so the players and everybody who's involved in the tournament operation will be clean and free, I guess, before the things start. I was happy to see the repositioning of RBC Heritage, so at least RBC does get one event in there, and Heritage is always one of my favorite events to watch because of the golf course. It's beautiful out there. And then I guess the other side of it is now there's sort of implications that the tour is going to consider this a complete season. There'll be 36 events, even though a lot of them will be outside of the traditional the way we look at it. So in other words, the Tour Championship is going to end. A lot of those big money and big point events, major championships and stuff, in a couple of cases will be after that. So if you are a player outside the top 125 right now, you better start playing better golf right now for a number of reasons, not the least of which is to make it into the FedEx Cup playoffs.
Yeah, certainly if you want to be in that Tour Championship FedEx Cup playoffs, you need to take advantage of those early starts. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with status carrying forward past Christmas, New Year's into the following year. The 2021 FedEx Cup will have 6 majors before we get to it, with a U.S. Open and a Masters double dipping, really in an extended season, so to speak, for lack of a better term. I've been on multiple conference calls with PGA Tour Entertainment, getting us ready for potential changes in production models. What that means, I don't know, but I know that safety and health of the players and the employees and the caddies and everybody involved is first and foremost. So what that means come June, we'll wait and see. We know the first 4 events will have no spectators guaranteed, and they will reevaluate for July. Now, this affects more than just the professional golf tours in the world that are all targeting to come back sometime in June. It affects us right here in Canada for our viewers and listeners that want to put the ball in the ground. They want to play golf. BC is doing that with protocol in place for COVID-19. Alberta is lobbying to get open. And it seems now, Bob, that there are other places in the world, including the other provinces, that are starting to get petitions going and starting to get signatures acquired because they'd like to be in the phase of business, phase 1, of provinces and or states reopening for business. Can golf be a leader? When does this happen? I guess a lot depends on where you're watching this podcast.
Yeah, in British Columbia, there's 100 golf courses open from what I understand, and some of them are still remaining closed. Saskatchewan apparently is looking good to perhaps reopen. Alberta and Ontario, as you said, 2 of the bigger ones have petitions going. Whether that will affect it or not, I know that the Premier was on TSN Radio. Premier Ford was on TSN Radio and was asked directly about it, and he didn't lean one way or the other, but he sort of said, we're going to follow the principles. But there's certainly an an urge to go back out and play. And in most places in Canada, not BC, but I would say in most other places in Canada, this is the time when you start thinking about playing golf again. So you're already at that level where you're hoping to get out, regardless of the coronavirus. And so this puts a little bit of an extra push in urgency for the people who think it's safe to go out and play and believe it's safe to go out and play again. They want to get out there and they want to do their stuff. And from a business standpoint, if you're a golf course operator, obviously this is where you make a lot of your money, not only with green fees, but also sales in the pro shop and things. So there's a lot of people who would love to see golf going back, but again, safety first.
Yeah, certainly safety first. And if the province allows it, it's going to be an individual choice, because eventually, whether that's middle of May, end of May, beginning of June, whenever that date is, we need to eventually start making decisions to come out the other side when they tell us it's time to do so. But I don't see normal coming, Bob, for a very long time. So we better get used to this, and to each their own. I don't think you can tell anybody what their level of risk should be once the province and our medical professionals tell us it's okay to start to come out. Well, immediately following our podcast last week, we got the announcement on the schedule, and we got the unfortunate announcement on the RBC Canadian Open. So immediately following that announcement, Bob and I had the opportunity to speak with Lawrence Applebaum, CEO of Golf Canada. We're going to run that interview for you next. This is the Golf Talk Canada video podcast.
This is Golf Talk Canada, presented by SmartGolfDeals.com. This segment of GTC is brought to you by TaylorMade and the all-new Sim and Sim Max drivers. Shape in motion. We reshape the driver so you can reshape your game.
Welcome back to Golf Talk Canada, and whether you're listening to this on GTC Radio or you're going to view this on our digital platforms, we're welcoming now to Golf Talk Canada a friend of the show, as well as someone who's had a very busy week in the world of golf. And I know we've been trying to get a hold of you for a while now, but he's here with us. Lawrence Applebaum joining us, of course, from Golf Canada. Lawrence, thank you so much for the time. Before we get into what happened this week with the RBC Canadian Open and where we're at, also I want to touch base with you where we're at in terms of a participation angle, because I know our provinces are taking different angles towards how we're going to golf, when we're going to golf, etc. I want to know how you are, because I know you've been through a lot. You've been obviously big leadership role in this, and it's been a few challenging weeks, I can imagine.
Well, thanks, Mark and Bob, for having me on, and for keeping everyone so informed. Probably the hardest part for everyone is without golf, we are struggling. We are struggling we're so anxious to get out there and play, and anxious for news, and the hard part is it's been so busy. It's been such a busy time for everyone, and thinking about all the listeners, their families, especially those folks who are working really hard as essential services or frontline people. We all know people who are in the middle of it, or people who are dealing with it. So our first and foremost, our thoughts are going out to all those folks.
All right, Lawrence, let's start with the RBC Canadian Open, and let's start there. How late in this process? Obviously, we had the announcement this week, but prior to this week, how late in the process were we as a governing body, being Golf Canada, still considering, still looking at the viability of having a national championship this year?
Well, the announcement, as you said, came earlier this week, but we've been in conversations and scenario planning for weeks, and actually, in realistic terms, it's spread over months. And the PGA Tour, continues to show itself as best in class as far as a tour and a professional sports league / tour. The conversations we've had between the tour and our title sponsor RBC, thinking and planning about how it is evolving from the early days. From the early days when we're hearing about this coronavirus in the Far East. And then as the weeks progressed and we learned more about the scale and the growth, and all of a sudden a lot of people were actually focused on Tokyo. I think that's where sports people were starting to think about. And as those dominoes started to fall, the conversations got more intense, and the scenarios started to play out. The hardest thing for us was we had such an incredible 2019. You know, it was as you both know, RBC Canadian Open, third longest running golf event in the world, and it was going to be our 125th anniversary, and everything was really moving towards such a fantastic event at St. George's. I know you both were looking forward to covering it at St. George's and our partner at Islington for the practice facility. But all of a sudden things were coming at us from different spaces. And one of the biggest one was probably when the federal legislation came down with regards to the Quarantine Act and a hard border closing and essential services only going back and forth. And then when it came down to the mandatory isolation, which is today still in place, we don't know how long that will last, but the idea that anyone coming over the border, which would include all of the PGA Tour players, their caddies, their player support team, even the Canadians who are based down in Florida or based in the US, I should say, would have to do 14-day isolation. It just was one of those things that just became untenable for us to really manage.
When you look at it now, and I think I asked you this question earlier in the week, it's easy to sort of say, oh, well, it's sad. There's, the players won't be coming up here and the fans won't be coming up here, but there's a whole network of people that we're planning to help out in some kind of way here, whether they be volunteers or vendors or, some kid. I think I mentioned to you how Mike Weir talks about the first time he came to the Canadian Open, the first time he saw a professional golf tournament was at the Canadian Open at Glen Abbey many years ago. So the cancellation doesn't just affect the players and their caddies. It's pretty wide ranging, isn't it? Can you give us an idea of that?
Yeah, I mean the emotion that sort of really is the utter disappointment. It's been gutting for us, and I've been getting letters, mostly emails and texts, but I got an email today from a volunteer who'd done it for 25 years. And this would be, a seminal moment when you're 25 years volunteering. We had 1,800 volunteers signed up for this year, and amongst those folks, there a lot of them are retired or in an older demographic, and they look forward to this as a highlight. And this gentleman said, this would have been my 25th year. I was looking forward to getting the 25-year celebration. And he's like, I know it won't be this year, but it's going to be next year. and I was really encouraged by that positivity and the look, because we are hoping and our goal is to be putting it on at St. George's and Islington next year in 2021. But I think about those people. I think about the vendors. I think about the suppliers. I think about the media folks who, especially those in the golf media, who this is our major. Someone said Mackenzie Hughes, I think, said, this is my major. And how well so many of them were playing. Nick winning, Rory talking very consistently about returning and defending, and all those players that had St. George's, circled on their calendar. So, I feel for the fans. I feel for our players, and obviously for the organizations, not only Golf Canada and RBC, but all the organizations that really look forward to this. So, yeah, it's a big disappointment, and I'm sort of thinking about you guys as well, and how you guys feel about. You both were there in 2010. Mark was trying to qualify that year, if we recall. It didn't go as well as we all had hoped. Do you remember, Mark? Started with a birdie, and then we should have just.
After that, it went sideways after that opening birdie for sure. Lawrence, like last year was, I'm been very open that it was the best Canadian Open I've ever been a part of in any capacity. It was just a grand slam home run. You alluded to 2021. I know there's still some T's to cross and I's to dot, and I'm sure work to be done. And there's also no guarantees that the world is going to be what the new normal will be by the time we get to 2021. All that aside, just from a confidence level, how confident are you right now to say that what we had planned in 2020 will be able to take place at St. George's in 2021?
Well, a lot of these things, I think, depend so much on momentum. And we had this incredible momentum with the event. All of our metrics and all of our indicators. We had these two incredible concerts with RBCX. We had Chainsmokers coming on Friday night. We had Keith Urban coming on Saturday night. We had Richview Collegiate, which was going to be a phenomenal. I want to. What Richview Collegiate is obviously Bob's alma mater. I don't know what the team name was. What's the team name?
The Saints.
The Saints of Richview Collegiate, of course. We were looking forward to that being a site. So we had such momentum going, and that was wonderful. And then we couldn't have picked a better host club for the main event in St. George's. Arguably one of our finest locations, and always number one, number two, top one or two in the country. And then what Islington had done as a practice facility, as a place for the players and a place for the caddies and a place for the range, the reconstruction that they were in the process of. Together with those two clubs, we're continuing to work towards the momentum for, can we believe we're going to have, 13 months to build. And what we had, one of the members had said, it was our dream to bring the golf tournament here. And we're still going to have that dream. I feel really confident about we're going to get there. But we're going to work really hard with both memberships and both clubs to do that. And, I do have to mention the city of Toronto and the province. Is both parties, they've been behind what we've been doing. I think Mayor Tory has been doing an exceptional job trying to manage this crisis. And similarly at the provincial level, I think Doug Ford has done a very admirable job in this state of emergency. They've directed efforts towards health and medical services. They've directed things appropriately. It's about saving lives and people's health. But both those parties have been great, and we just hope that everything will continue forward. I felt a momentum shift happen this week. I don't know if you guys felt it, but it felt like the data was starting to point in the right direction. I'm optimistic more in the last 24, 40 hours than I've been in a while. So that's really good.
Lawrence, in addition to the RBC Canadian Open, which is, I know, been the focal point for the last little bit, you guys run a whole bunch of other tournaments. You've got the Canadian Amateur, both men's and women's, the seniors, the juniors. You've also got in September the CP Women's Open out at Shaughnessy Golf and Country Club. Is this sort of a never-ending trail as the weeks and months go on, where you have to kind of keep looking at what's possible and what isn't?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, Bob. Our professional championship schedule bookends the summer. The RBC Canadian Open, the start of summer, and Labor Day weekend was actually going to be is planned for the September long weekend in Vancouver at Shaughnessy. And we got some great indications. British Columbia as a province has not closed. We have not. We've been able to continue playing golf with incredible protocols that those golf clubs are putting in place. I heard Mr. Scully was on a bike trip to go out to British Columbia because he could still play there, but I'm not sure if that bike trip has happened or not. But I'm hearing good indications of what's going on in the Lower Mainland and British Columbia. The LPGA Tour obviously has updated their schedule as well, and with some adjustments of keeping things in North America. I had a great conversation with Mike Wan last week, and his players continue to look forward to our event, and it's a major stop. So big fingers crossed, things will continue well. And then our amateur championship season, we're mindful that competitive season starts early, but really the bulk of it is in late July and August. And so as things go on, we want to make sure that we have great plans in place. We also have some contingency plans. We also know that golf courses, when they open, we want to be sensitive. They want to get out and play. They want to get out and play and also make sure that it's a receptive environment for people and people traveling into these places. But one of the first calls we did get yesterday when we announced the RBC Canadian Open move to cancellation was from the men's amateur winner who wanted to check in on his exemption and make sure he was still good for 2021. So we really appreciated him to remind us how much he's looking forward to. So.
Lawrence, before we let you go, just to piggyback on participation and playing golf for our listeners coast to coast. I know everybody's different in each province. We spoke to Kevin Thistle earlier this week and spoke about the challenges with his association dealing, in each funnel that is each province and the different challenges. I'm assuming you're facing the same challenges as well, just keeping communication lines open, treating each province to its unique situation. Because like you say, BC is open, everyone else is closed. Alberta looks like they are lobbying and preparing for coming out of the other side already. I can imagine this is a full-time job as well, never mind just our championships.
Well, I think that's probably one of the most important issues that we're dealing with right now. And golf as a sport is, we're rule followers. It has a cadence and a protocol that lends itself well for the recovery. It also lends itself well for all the reasons that we love the sport is big wide open spaces, natural physical distancing, all those great things that I think is going to be really bode well for our return. People like Kevin Thistle at the PGA of Canada, people like Jeff Calderwood at the National Golf Course Owners Association, the club managers, their executive directors, Suzanne Godbehere and Catherine Wood, who oversees the superintendents. We've had weekly calls. We've had great collaboration. We want to work with we've continued our work with medical health experts across the country, and particularly on a provincial level in helping us get back to recreational normalcy when it's safe. We know that a lot of people are really in tough moments, and we're completely mindful of that, but we also want to have those protocols in place. So a small shout out to our team at Golf Canada and all the teams at golf clubs around the country who've been working on these protocols. We have a resource page at golfcanada.ca, which helps people know the protocols that are being put in place, the preparations that are being made. And I can promise you that everyone is going to be ready when it's safe to play golf again. And I know you guys are itching for it. We miss it. We're sad about the RBC Canadian Open, but we also know that when it comes back, it's going to come back in such a profound way. We're going to appreciate the bogeys more than we've ever had in our lives. So, I hope you guys are staying safe, doing well, and thanks for everything that you do for golf.
Lawrence, thank you so much for your time. Thank you. I know it's been challenging, and I really appreciate you taking the time with Bob and I and speaking to our listeners. And I'm sure we'll be doing this again as information and updates come out. LA, I will leave you with this. I will never complain about a slow round of golf again. That's for sure. You guys can leave me on a golf course as long as you want. I'll be very happy. And if Keith Urban is not available for 2021 for you, LA, I will put the band back together. Just
no one swings a left-handed axe like you, Z.
Lawrence Applebaum, CEO of Golf Canada, thank you so much for your time. We will be back with more Golf Talk Canada, and we will keep you up to date on all things as this proceeds to change over the next weeks, days, months, etc. to the Canadian golf community. This is Golf Talk Canada.
This is Golf Talk Canada, presented by SmartGolfDeals.com. This segment of GTC is brought to you by Golf Ontario, shaping lives through golf.
Welcome back to the Golf Talk Canada video podcast. Always great to connect with Lawrence Applebaum and our friends at Golf Canada. Welcoming in now master producer himself, Mr. Adam Scully, for a little Scully time. Skulls, how are you doing? Enjoying the videos on the Golf Talk Canada social media platforms of your how to stay in shape, how to get ready for the season, which could be coming sooner than later. But before we get to that, just curious on your thoughts of what happened after our podcast last week when you saw that new schedule from the PGA Tour. I think we all knew already what was happening to the RBC Canadian Open. But I was curious about some of the other things. I was surprised to see the Asian swing on the schedule for October, and I was surprised to lose the Greenbrier for good. I heard rumors that the Greenbrier might not be on the schedule this year, but its permanent removal caught me a little off guard.
Yeah, certainly surprising for sure. Obviously, here in Canada, not having the RBC Canadian Open, also not exactly surprising with the travel restrictions. Now, if everything does go to plan, the late summer into the fall is going to be tremendous television, tremendous for all of us on Golf Talk Canada. It's going to be a sprint to the finish, really, from mid-June into December for our year in review. I'm pretty excited for that. Now, Bob, off the top, you mentioned your hair. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I actually cut my own hair here. It took about 90 minutes.
Yeah,
if you guys need anything, just let me know. I might have a new profession.
Perfect. I would love to take you up on that, and maybe we could do next one. We'll do Golf Talk Canada virtual haircuts. We can put that up online. Adam, when you look at the schedule, is there anything that do you think will seem very strange as we get to, say, the end of the year? Is there anything that's going to will feel sort of weird with it?
The couple of things that come out to me or stand out to me, the Ryder Cup, if it's played without fans, that would just be bizarre. The adrenaline rush players have, you never see players go with the reactions they do in a typical event, but in a Ryder Cup, they lose their minds, they go crazy. That would be simply weird to see without fans. And having the US Open and the Ryder Cup still back-to-back weeks, how crazy would that be?
I got to tell you guys, I think a Ryder Cup without fans would actually be stranger than a Masters in November. I think it would be that bizarre to have a Ryder Cup without spectators. Now, if we do have a Ryder Cup with spectators and a US Open with spectators, that might be the best 2 weeks that we get all year in terms of TV and tournament golf. That is going to be just the pinnacle of the season for golf viewership and excitement around golf if we can have fans by middle of September. All right, Adam, what happened a year ago in the world of golf? It's something we've been doing the last couple of weeks on our podcast, as well as Golf Talk Canada Radio, taking a look back at where we were in the year 2019 this week. What happened a year ago?
Okay, so time now for the week that was and what could have been this week. Let's start with the LPGA Tour, the Hugel Air Premier LA Open. Minjee Lee, she won by 4 shots last year, 4 rounds in the 60s for her 5th career LPGA Tour win. Brooke Henderson finished T10, one of her 13 top 10 finishes in 2019. 2 other Canucks making the cut, Jacqueline Lee and A.C. Tanguay. On the European Tour, the Trophée Hassan in Morocco, won by Jorge Campillo. Eric Van Rooyen finished 2 shots back. Austin Connolly, the lone Canadian to play that week, he unfortunately missed the cut. This weekend on the PGA Tour would have been the Zurich Classic of New Orleans. Team event, obviously. Team duo, John Rahm, Ryan Palmer, a 3-shot victory. Sergio Garcia, Tommy Fleetwood came second. There was some great Canadian content, however, as well. How about Canadian David Hearn playing with Seamus Power for the 2nd straight year? They finished T5, of course, in 2018. They finished T10. Not the only Canadian to make the top 10. Nick Taylor playing with Martin Laird. They came T9, while Adam Hadwin and Jim Canoose finished T13. Now, a big thing with this event, obviously, boys, is that it is a team event, but there's also some walk-up music that they use on the first tee. If you guys could have any walk-up music for your rounds of golf, what would it be? Let's start with you, Bob.
Ooh, I'd probably go with Bob Seger's "Beautiful Loser." That would be appropriate, I think, maybe.
Oh, you, Mark?
For me, Adam, listen, I'm going to put it on my WWE hat now because I always think like you need that hard guitar riff intro music. I'm going like probably AC/DC Hell's Bells or something like that. That's a little bit of intimidation on my way to the first tee. Scully, before we let you go, let us know about Scully Scoop. Is it dropped this week? When's the official drop date?
It has dropped, and it's available on YouTube and on iTunes. I have a very exciting second guest who will be joining me. He actually won gold for Team Canada at the World Junior Hockey Championship, so I'll be talking to him, and maybe we'll be discussing his golf game as well, but looking forward to this new project for sure.
That's awesome, Adam. Congratulations. Scully Scoop. Get it on the YouTube, get it on the iTunes. It's Adam's new podcast, and we'll be listening and watching. Scully, thanks so much. We'll talk to you this week for Golf Talk Canada Radio and other items. Bob, it's been a busy week. There's so much going on in the world of golf. It seems like there's news breaking every week. I feel like we're kind of headed now for a little bit of a lull, in the sense that the only golf news that we might be on top of now might be more local news in terms of what the province is announcing, what communications from golf courses are coming. Is that where your stories, is that where you're focused right now? Because I think we might get a little bit of quiet and calm for the next few weeks in terms of the professional game.
Yeah, I think that's a little it. I think we're gonna stay busy checking in with the Canadian pros. We're gonna try and check in with one every week and put an interview up on tsn.ca with that. But definitely, I think it is a bit of a waiting period now to see what's next with in terms of lifting things and when we're restarting both professional golf and just the recreational golfer.
Well, we'll be staying very busy here at our video podcast. We're doing radio every Saturday morning on the TSN radio network. And this upcoming Saturday, Bob, Adam, and I are going to break down what we think Tiger Woods' schedule might look like when the gun goes off in June for the world of golf. We're hoping to have a Golf Talk Canada TV announcement coming for you in the upcoming weeks, as we are looking to return to TV for the major championship golf season in 2020. Don't forget our friends at Woodington Lake have a wonderful contest going on. You got to follow them on Instagram, like them on Instagram, and tag a couple of friends. They're looking for you to rename their legacy golf course at Woodington Lake, and they're trying to give you a free membership for the season on the golf course you name, if they choose your selection. And Adam, of course, has been busy with Scully Scoop, and Bob has been busy with everything on tsn.ca, pounding out the content. It almost seems on a regular daily basis. And you probably heard an announcement maybe this morning from yours truly that we finally got Off the Hosel off the ground. So Off the Hosel coming May 4th in the US and Canada, and you need to be exclusive Bell 5 TV subscriber to get it in Canada for the month of May for the launch. So looking forward to that. We'll talk to you all next week on our video podcast, and this weekend on the TSN Radio Network. Remember, first good decision on the golf course always starts in the closet.
Mark and Bob's clothing and apparel provided by Adidas Golf.